Is it okay to have sex with a robot? To be honest with you, when I thought about this series and answering this question, I'm like, this is bizarre and crazy. We even have to answer this question. But the reality is there was just a huge news story for a major news organization I won't mention, talking about how this is a growing trend in America and beyond. There's conventions, there's stores, there's people doing and pushing this idea of sex with a robot. So as Christians, we got to think about this. Now, of course, you're not going to find a Bible verse that says don't have sex with a robot for obvious reasons. There weren't robots when the Bible was written, but there's principles in the Bible that will help us. And we're going to look at a few, but keep in mind, first off, obviously, having sex with a robot, you can't get a sexually transmitted infection, okay? That's good, but that's not the limit of the conversation, how we Christians should approach this. So here's three things I think we should keep in mind. The first issue is that Scripture is very clear that lust is wrong. Jesus talked about this on the Sermon on the Mount. He said adultery is not just a physical act, but something we commit in our hearts. So in a robot, although it's not a person, there would be lust as if it's a person, thus violating what Jesus said about avoiding lust in the heart. That's an easy way to approach this. The second concern is that Scripture makes it very clear from Genesis all the way through Scriptures that God's design for sex is to be between one man and one woman in a committed marital relationship. So sex is to be between humans of the opposite sex. Well, what does sex with a robot do? It brings in a non-human agent into a sexual relationship that God designed to be between humans of the opposite sex. So it's breaking or distorting God's intention for the expression of sexuality. And third, having sex with a robot distorts somebody's sexual preferences. I mean, this raises all sorts of very weird questions. For example, some have asked, and ethicists are actually wrestling with this question right now, is it okay if you have a robot that looks like a child? You say, that's crazy. And some would say, well, it's just a robot. It's not actually a child. But I would look at that, I'd say, wait a minute. Having sex with a robot affects you in one way, but second, that looks like a child. Doesn't this distort and change our preferences and the way we think about sex? It affects us. So somebody has sex with a robot, child or not, what's it doing? It's changing their desires and their preferences away from a flesh and blood human being in which God has designed sex to be experienced. So I think the question, is sex with a robot okay? When we think about it biblically, it's pretty clear that it's not.